Rowan, how are you, man?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm
Really
really
good.
good. I really appreciate you doing this, man. It's a big setup, and I think we've met once in the halls of Tafta, and that was it.
Probably. I was trying to think, actually, have we ever actually met
Yeah,
face to face before?
you were doing, you were helping out with show reel time.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
upstairs doing
Yeah.
fucking shit,
Yeah, that's right. With John just
pretend bedroom slash bar
yeah, that's
slash
right.
restaurant.
And John walking around in his element there, loving it. It's a great space, actually. It was really good, and they did a good job in converting that to whatever it was I was doing for that. That was for oh, I can't remember her name now. That's disgusting.
What year was that? Was it part of my graduating class or was it the next graduating class?
I don't know, man.
Was it?
It's funny you ask about years because I am really bad at like time, like correlating everything into a time frame. Like if like I was just saying to Jeannie, my wife, this morning. Like I talked to Jack, our eldest son, who's 7.
Hmm.
Sometimes I just forget that he's only 7 years old. And I'm expecting him to respond like a 9 or a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old to something,
Yeah.
because in a lot of ways he does. But I just lose sight of the fact that he's only 7 years old, and that I've been out of Melbourne now for 3 years, which is crazy as well, because it feels like I'm only just starting to feel comfortable here back home in the Sunshine Coast. So
Oh, okay. So that's home for you.
yeah. Well, actually,
Okay.
yeah, I was born in Cairns,
Right.
but the Sunshine Coast is it kind of feels like home now. Finally.
Right. Okay.
So yeah. In answer to your question, I've got no fucking idea, mate, when that was.
Well, I graduated um, June of 2016, and I remember obviously, I did my show reels then. I don't think you were there then. I think it was like the next class as they were wrapping up in sort of October. And I came in to help out someone else with their reel. You're in a suit, if I remember
Yeah, I
correctly.
was. And
Yeah.
October sounds familiar for some reason,
Yeah.
and 2016 would be on the money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it
And then
was towards
go on.
the end. It was towards the end
Yeah.
of my time in Melbourne.
Yeah. Cool. That makes sense. And then, yeah, I think you reached out we were going to do some headshots,
That's
and then
right.
you split not
Yeah,
too soon after or something.
yeah,
Yeah. And I
yeah,
was away actually because I went away at the end of that year to do some geophysical survey, and it was a whole thing where I sort of 3 months were gone, and I think by the time I got back, you'd split.
yeah. Well, it all came around pretty quickly, the move, because we just signed a lease on the place we were living in Newport, which we loved. It was a beautiful house. Um, and we had kept our house here, the one I'm in now, in the Sunshine Coast, and it was
Right.
being rented. And our tenants here had just, I think I just inhaled a bug. That's nice. So if I just do the Bushman's blow halfway through this, you know what
That's
that
all
is.
right.
Um, our tenants here had just
I'll make sure to put it in slow mo.
yeah, that's the wonders of modern filmmaking. Our tenants here are just, she got a job in New Zealand, so they broke lease. And then Jeannie said to me, like, Jack would have been 4, and Frankie would have just been turning 2. And she said, what are we doing? Like, where do we want? Because once we start these kids in school, we don't really want to,
That's it. You're in.
play the game. You're in.
Yeah.
So it just kind of all aligned, and it's a very expensive city to live in, and
Melbourne.
yeah,
Yeah.
and as much as we'd made networks there, we weren't really hooked in, and I think
How long had you been here? Sorry.
we were there for 4 years. So
And you
yeah,
made the move for the acting side of things, yeah?
yeah, that's right. We came
Yeah.
down from the Sunshine Coast there because I got a big payout from, I used to be a public servant, so I got a virtually a year's worth of salary as a redundancy payout when Campbell Newman, the then Liberal government, was in power up here. And
excuse my ignorance, public servant? Tell me more about
a Queensland government employee. So
Right.
I, Well, I'm a carpenter by trade, so
Right.
I was doing project management for the building and asset services arm of the Queensland government. So we managed Department of Housing portfolio as far as building and maintenance is concerned, all up
Yeah.
health, um, police, schools. Schools are an education department. It's massive, um, and I wasn't happy. I had a newborn kid at that stage, and I'd had opportunities to go out and work as a subcontractor for other people, and so I just took a payout, and then we went, well, what's the next step? I had an agent up here, and I said, what's the next step for me? And she said, you're not going to do much up here, mate, so you may as well go to Melbourne. And
Right.
Janine's originally from Melbourne, so it made sense to go back down there. So we did. We just packed in. She sold her business up here. She was a very successful business owner, still is. She had a magazine publication up here
Oh wow.
that was a local to the southeast corner and did quite well. And she got it to a point where she wasn't working too much in the business, but it was paying her a good salary. And she had a buyer, so we sold it. So we moved to Melbourne, and for the first 12 months, basically, we just, were pushing Jack around in a pram and sipping lattes and, in Williamstown. And I was
Yeah.
doing a lot of theatre at the Williamstown Little Theatre, and it was bliss. But then, shit got real and money ran out, and, there wasn't, I had that naivety of I suppose, a lot of us, I don't know. I just thought that I'd just get there and it would all happen. And it was a steep 4-year learning curve about.
All right. When you say it, you mean in the acting world, or you mean like even if it didn't happen in the acting world, you would just pick up a contracting job and you guys would be sweet? Or
No, it was very much about acting. It was very much like I'll just go down there and it'll all fall into place because I was doing okay up here on the Sunshine Coast, and I thought,
yeah,
well, it's a much bigger. There's so much more stuff going on there that I should be fine. And looking back at it now, relatively, I was doing quite well. I was pretty successful in getting little bit parts in some pretty good series and stuff, and doing a lot of theatre work and. But it's not financially viable.
no,
So, and Melbourne's an expensive, like we've got investment property as well in central Queensland in a coal country, and that all went south as far as the value of it. And, so we had 2 mortgages that Jeannie, bless her socks, was paying through her business,
yeah,
plus the rent on, in a West Melbourne, which is equivalent to another mortgage, a substantial mortgage.
yeah,
So she was essentially paying 3 mortgages and putting food on the table, and I was chasing work, but just was not getting enough of it to be
no,
a
it's a
financial
lot.
contributor.
Yeah, a lot needs to land for you to solely act. Hey, like it
Oh
just
yeah,
it's so massive. What needs to line up,
yeah,
And I saw a car commercial come through the other day for like 40 grand, and it was like, oh, I've seen one of those in like 4 years,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And of course, I did a car commercial last year for 3.
yeah. Me too.
So I can't do it.
Me too.
Not-
Yeah.
yeah, motherfuckers.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I get a bit miffed at that brand association stuff too, because invariably your car commercial runs for 3 months and then it's gone. And, there's so many of them out there in the market that, you have to disclose if you've done one in the last 5 years, and you're like, God, I can't remember what I did 5 weeks ago or what I saw on TV 5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And you're writing me out of the potential to apply for a job that could set me up financially for a year
Yeah.
based on the fact that I took a job 5 years ago. Like, it does drive me a bit insane. But I mean, that's the game.
That is a funny misplaced logic, but it's very archaic in terms of their cutting edge, and then you'll have but like the rules would be bent for anyone of enough value,
Yeah,
enough
that's right.
stature.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Yeah, it is. I mean, I understand why they ask, and I'm yeah. I understand their thought process as well, but I just think in a lot of ways stuff needs to change. And I think it is now, like as well, because the dominance of free to air TV as a commercial enterprise is waning. So
I wonder whether that would apply internationally. Like if you were to pick up an audition in New York or whatever for a car commercial, whether they'd be like, do you have, well, I don't know, you've got this Mazda commercial going on in Australia. I don't think it matters.
I don't think it does either. But yeah.
So let's make not a quick jump. Let's jump into True Blue.
Yeah.
You're short.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't say this to you before we got on camera. I can't remember if I said it to the other day either. I don't do a lot of prep for this, so other than to watch something like that, because I like to learn all about it in the moment. So if I was looking back at I put a highlight reel out the other day, and must have been like 3 clips in there where I had forgotten the person's name of their company, didn't have the right name of their film. And it's just like that. And Sharpie gives me shit for it. He's like, mate, fucking just remember at least what it's called.
Yeah.
And I'm so shit at it.
And he's pretty good at it too. So
he's pretty good at it.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing that Anthony and I, as we work on different things together and what have you, I see the differences between he and I, and that is that he is a performer, an entertainer.
Yeah.
His number one objective is to entertain, and it's the same with Julie. And it's an interesting, when they set up their podcasts and their shows, it's like zip,
yeah.
entertain. Whereas I'm the opposite of that. I'm like, if you're entertained, bonus. If not, I could care less.
Yeah,
because then at least
you're the Joe Rogan.
Brand.
You're the Joe Rogan of the acting world, mate.
I'm certainly inspired by him.
Yeah.
But that's true. That's not something I've decided to do. That's just how it is. And so sometimes my choices in podcast, Anthony would be like, ooh, I don't know if that's where you want to be. And my wife included. I'm like, that's what I would want to hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyways, I just watched it, man, and like, you must be really, really proud. You guys have done an incredible job.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I am. And it's taken me a long time to get to the place where I can watch my own work back and go, I'm proud of that. And not pull it apart and cringe and go, didn't get, that's not believable there or whatever. Like, so I think that's 90% of the battle too, is just to be able to accept what's in the moment for what it is, and and it's always frame it as an objective. It's an objective art form, and people are going to take what they want from it, and haters are going to hate, and other people are going to love it, and if you can just get open to that, then that helps. But it was a cracking script. It's a minimalist script, as you could see from the... There's
5 pages, maybe?
Yeah, there's not a lot of dialogue, and it's all done through, which I really love about it, which Bronwyn was aware of from the get-go, and Derek Bronwyn's the writer, director, and producer, and Derek's the producer as well, that it has current content that's approachable for the target demographic for it. But she understands the medium of film is a visual medium. There's lots of stuff that can be said and shown without dialogue. And I think that's something we forget sometimes too, as actors. We feel like we have to do something with dialogue that we don't necessarily have to do. And,
totally. I just, not to... Anyways, I just had this conversation with Anthony yesterday, because we're working on a scene that's coming up, because we're both with the same agency now. And we're working on something to put out to the Lord of the Rings casting world.
Yeah.
And I sort of wrote a baseline script, and then he and a friend redid it to make it more specific of fantasy and what have you. And we're having this back and forwards about show me, don't tell me, and my like between him and his mate, there's 40 years experience.
Yeah.
And I've got
Yeah.
5. So it's really a good education. Like on the phone yesterday, he's like, you don't need to say it, And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, but this is an out of context scene. How will it? There's no story that's come before to lead your audience to understand what the fuck we're on about.
Yeah.
And he's like, it still doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Just this is a proof of archetype and a proof of presence on screen and what have you. As long as we do our jobs properly, it'll be fine. And so this will be a really good, because my instinct is still to say these things, So it'll be good to try and stamp that out, see it, and then go, oh yeah, because those are the best moments, when you go against what you believe, and then you're proven not wrong, but that this is the way, or this looks better, and then it really sinks in.
Yeah, and it takes a long time to come to that realization too. I think you always feel like you've got to show, you've got to do to show, and like I always think of that Robert De Niro, whatever interview where he says, just do nothing, nothing,
Dude, he does nothing.
Yeah,
it just lets the story that's in his fucking cells come out.
Yeah, and
like,
this thing here, well, if it's happening inside, it'll pick it up. It really is like a window into your, like these are windows into your soul. So if you're feeling it, you don't have to say it because the camera will pick that up. It's taken me a long time to understand that. Like, just do less, feel more, do less.
Yeah, you feel more.
Listen hard, let it land, feel it. And then say your line, however it comes out. I've just done, and I'm just being reintroduced to that too. I'm doing an acting class at the moment up here with a guy, Lee Parker's his name, and he's a Sunshine Coast boy, but he's been in LA for years, and he's back now because I think he's done his run, and it's like I just need to get out of Dodge while it's all going down, and the first 2 weeks we've just been saying the lines of the scene in a monotone with no attachment to it, but just keeping eye contact with our scene partner, and then we would finish our line, and then your scene partner just lets it land.
That's right, yeah.
And then says their line, yeah. And I was like,
I haven't done that for ages.
Yeah, it's really interesting thing to do.
Yeah.
So I've just been reintroduced to it, and it's blown my mind again. So
listening was definitely, probably still is, was a big issue for me. And I remember it was actually a girl in class, this 18-year-old girl I was in this scene with her, and I was just fucking not getting it. And I wrote the fucking scene. And, and she said, just listen to me. And I was like, yeah, shit. And I did. And then it worked.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy crap, I just got schooled by an 18-year-old. But I want to go back to the film.
Oh, sorry.
Because I grew up on a farm, and my sister is in agriculture, and there's lots. Obviously, it's a very hot topic at the moment. I mean, it has been for a while, but it's more. It's coming across people's table more now than ever. I feel. Do you know Nick Kane?
No, but that name sounds familiar.
And Lauren Bailey.
I know Lauren Bailey. Yeah, I've done a film with Lauren.
Right. So Lauren's film that's just coming out. What is it called? I think it's called Here I Leave You or something like that. I watched this 2 days ago. I can't remember the name. That is about a farmer who's distraught and is going under, and his dad is. It's different, but it's that same vibe. But anyways, when I was watching your film, a memory, it's a very strong memory, but I never put it all together. So if you're listening to this podcast, I'm about to give away the ending because I want to talk to you about it. So
sure.
Turn off. Yeah. When I was younger, so for the first 10 years of my life, I grew up on a farm and then worked a farm for another 5 years. And when I was 10, my dad was forced to sell his farm. And I'd grown up in this, and my dad had built this place. It was 136 acres out in Perth. And it was this 2-story fucking incredible house. And there's 6 kids in the car crying as we're driving away from this place. Like heavy, heavy, heavy. And there was this fella who posted something the other day, talking about the hardships of farming and, we're providing this food for you and it's taken for granted and this, that, and the other. And I'm sort of looking at it objectively and I'm like, well, before I start making assertions about what these people are going through, I might talk to my sister, who is an agricultural consultant down in the wheat belt in Western Australia. So she's going from farm to farm to farm. Well, she did. She's a stay-at-home mum now, but she has a degree in agriculture and accounting and business management. And she would go from farm to farm and teach them not only about how to run their business, but soil science and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
And a vast majority of those male farmers didn't want to have a fucking bar of what she had to say and would have rather have gone under. And she said that there's a lot of that where it's a legacy and they've inherited it and they're not particularly bright in terms of crunching numbers and what have you. And ultimately they hold on too long, way too long, with such a fickle, reliance on the weather. And that's what breaks them. Where smart farmers will sell high and get out and will do the math, and they'll employ someone to do the shit that they can't do, or they'll just split. And so while I'm watching your film and I'm having this memory come back when you guys decide to leave, I had a funny suspicion that it was going to lead to suicide, but that it wasn't going to happen. And not that I'm actually terrible at predicting films, so that's not to say that your film's predictable at all. I'm always so in a film I could never tell you what the ending's going to be. But so I had this memory of, come back to me of leaving our farm and us being heartbroken, but now feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude to my dad making that hard choice and getting the fuck out of there. He dropped $100,000 on his price just to get rid of it. And because if he had stuck it out, he would be fucked.
Yeah.
Like, totally.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful for that. And that's the difference between the winners and losers, really, is just cut ties, be smart. There's lots of articles going around at the moment about a recession will break you if you head into it and you're just sort of holding on and you try and hold on through a recession. You can't, because you just be smart. Fuck at it. So I loved that you guys did that in the end.
And it's kind of like, I think that's, there's obviously a message in it because its target demographic is these rural communities as well. And it's a beyond blue message. Like, there is someone to talk to, there is hope. But it's kind of a metaphor for life too, that, like, we all dig ourselves in deep into stuff that we think, we put all this pressure on ourselves that we have to make work, that we have to stay in for the long haul, or we have to protect some sort of idea that is not our idea. We're trying to hold up the ideals of our parents or, our friends or, but we don't, bottom line is you don't need to, you just need to take care of yourself and your immediate family as best you can. And if, you don't have to preserve this idea or this concept of success or whatever it is. Like, in his mind, he's letting his dad down and his grandfather down because they built the farm, and he couldn't make it
legacy,
work. Yeah, and he has these deep sense of failure because, he couldn't make it work, and he's letting his wife down and he's letting his son down and he's got no legacy to pass on to his son, But bottom line is, all his son wants is his dad.
His son doesn't give a shit about the farm. He just wants to play cricket with his dad and see his dad smile and be happy.
That's right. And that's all his wife wants as well,
Yeah. She was amazing too.
She was. Penny's incredible. I watched that. The first time I watched it, I went, Jesus, how good is she?
Yeah.
Yes.
You guys were great. It was great. I thought she was a really original choice at first. And then as the momentum built with you guys, I was like, yeah, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
And she was, I mean, it's a film of subtleties and a really, it's a really very actor's film in, the great shots and the minimal dialogue and what have you, which I
Yeah.
love,
Yeah.
right? But a good friend of mine, we always have this joke about a qualifying question of whether we're going to be friends or not, and it's like, what did you think of The Revenant? And I feel like, oh God, so long. Yeah, we're not going to be friends.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. Because you didn't really watch it, did you?
Yeah, or just if you need dialogue
Yeah, that's right.
constantly to skip
Yeah.
through a film, you can fuck off.
Yeah, exactly. And big explosions and all that
Big
sort of stuff.
explosions, yeah. I remember watching that at the Moonlight Cinemas with a mate of mine, and we were totally blown away. And this couple next to us, and they're going, "Oh, I mean, it's got some pretty trees, but fuck, it was long." And we were just like, "Oh my God."
But the irony is, I didn't think it was long though. Like when it was
No, of
over,
course not.
I was like, oh man, that's like an hour and a half. And you're like, oh wow, I was in there for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. I was completely consumed by it. So, but how did that whole, like, do you have any connection to, like, how do you know those people? How did the film come to you, and do you have a connection to farming at all, or?
Well, I didn't know any of those people prior to the filming, and
So you auditioned for it?
yeah, that was an audition one.
great.
That was out of not SAE, JMC Academy up here, which is one of. There's a couple of film schools. It's one of the independent ones. There's another one called SAE, which also does film. And they do audio. They do graphic
one here in Melbourne
design.
too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So those are the two kind of independent ones, and then you go to the university film schools. So there's Bond and Griffith and those ones as well. But that was advertised. That was a Star Now advertised one.
Really?
Yep.
Wow, there's some gems in there sometimes.
Oh,
you know?
you've got to sift through it, but you can
do.
find some gold. And it had, I was just impressed that it had a producer attached already, like a established producer. And
I mean, it's so well produced.
yeah, it's real. And Derek knows what he's doing. He's had some success in with some of his other films as well. And Bronwyn was a graduate of JMC, and she'd been out for a couple of years, I think. And it was a script that she kind of had rolling around, and I think she approached Derek, the producer, and said, look, I've got this. I'd love to shoot it. And between the two of them, they kind of engaged JMC to get some personnel involved, some ex-students and some students. But it was a mind-blowingly good crew. They ran like clockwork. They all knew each other. I think they'd all graduated together in the same year. And it was a real pleasure to be on. We camped at the farmhouse, so I had the farmhouse had 3 or 4 bedrooms, so everyone bunked down in there. Most of the boys in the crew set up tents out the front and slept there, and I had a van. I just slept in the van for a couple of nights, so it had a real community feel about it too, like we were all kind of making something together. And it just every department was spot on, and the story spoke to me through the script. I read the script and I just said, I really like this. I really like this a lot. So yeah.
What was the audition process like for that?
The first audition was with Bronwyn, basically, and she gave me that reminiscing scene about the shed that Dad built that, but she's from the land as well. Her family's a cattle family, so
yeah, it seems very personal.
Yeah, and so she had a really distinct vision about what that dialogue meant to her and what she wanted it to say to an audience, but allowed the freedom for me to find that in what I was doing. Gave me a bit of direction. I tried as best I could to do that, and she seemed happy. And then you walk out the door and you let them go, you just go, well, who knows? But then had to come back for a chemistry test with Penny, and Penny and I hit it off really like straight away. And she's a really beautiful, grounded, earthy woman as well. And
Yeah, that shines through in spades.
yeah, and we would give each other shit, but there was lots of affection as well. So it was always it was a really nice relationship.
Was she already attached, or was she in the middle of auditioning as well?
No, she was auditioning as well, and I think it was
Right.
down to her and another, and me and another, and then they did the chemistry tests of I think who they wanted, to who they'd put their pairs together as, and it was Penny and I. And so we did that chemistry test, and I think that as soon as we'd done the chemistry test, Bronwyn said, "Well, it's your guys if you want it." So, yeah, so it was really good. And Derek was there for that, and they had the DOP there for that as well. So, and a few of the crew. So we kind of started,
Yep.
you know, the process there, and then and then we did a few rehearsals prior to shooting, just so we could kind of get the feel of it right, and Bronwyn could get the intent right, and then it was just such a good vibe on set, and it went really well. It went really well.
Yeah, great. Yeah, funny that the scene where you guys are doing the fencing. I thought, fuck, how did they do that with the spring-loaded bit of wire without someone actually getting? Because it's such treacherous, like it just, it brought back a lot of memories.
Yeah, it's hot, and I do have, like, to answer another part of your question, I do have some farm experience. My dad was dedicated to mohair goat.
Right. Yep.
Farming, and he had. So I'm from Cairns originally, and up on the tablelands, he had a herd of goats. Herd of goats. Had a herd of goats. Yeah, stationed on a cattle farm, and he would go, and they're pretty easy to manage because the farmer would let them out every morning, and they'd bring themselves home at night, and they would free range forage, and Dad would go up every couple of weeks for a weekend and drench them and shear them and
Oh right, yep.
do whatever he needed to do. So I would go up on those occasions.
Oh,
And
experience of that one.
Yeah, and docking tails and all that sort of stuff. But I was never really attracted to it. It was a lot of hard work for very little return. And I distinctly remember Dad saying to me one day, I don't know how old I was. I must have been in my early teens or mid-teens, and we were driving in his ute, and he sort of said, "Oh, I'm kind of hoping that you would take over running the goats when I can't do it."
Really?
And I just dropped the bomb, and I said, "Why the fuck would I want to do that?" And I think that burst his bubble a bit. But he's always had an agricultural background. He grew up in Tamworth. Went to Farrer Agricultural College, where they studied a lot of the similar stuff that your sister would have studied, but back in the day, and animal husbandry and soil treatments and whatever else, and the crop rotation, all that sort of stuff, I would imagine. And then after that, he went droving as a ringer for a couple of months, and ended up in Perth in Western Australia, and lobbed into the, I think he had a contact at the ABC radio somehow, and lobbed in there and just said, "Oh, look, I'm looking for work." And this is back in the day, and the guys just looked him up and down and said, "Yeah, Ron, come back in on Monday and we'll start," sort of thing. And then did 38 years, I think, with the ABC radio, and travelled, and a little bit of TV, travelled from Perth, and then went to Longreach. And he was stationed in Longreach for a couple of years. My brother was born in Longreach, and then they
What's
moved.
your dad's name?
David Howard.
David Howard.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I'm sure my dad probably knows him.
Well, yeah, maybe, yeah. And my mum's from Perth. That's where Dad met Mum as well. And
right.
Yeah, and then moved to Cairns in 74 or late 73, I think. And then I was born in Cairns, and they're still there now. He did.
How old's your dad?
79.
Yeah, a couple of years older than my dad. Yeah.
So
I mean, Perth was a pretty small place back then, especially in the agricultural community.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And working in the radio, where it's your job to find the stories. Like he used to go out with a reel-to-reel tape recorder in Cairns, and he'd go for 5 days and he'd record 3 months worth of interviews and stuff, and then go back to the studio and cut it all together and put his rural program together, because he was the rural reporter.
Right. Wait, I'm sure they probably crossed paths, because my dad was at that point in like 1980, 1981, president of the West Australian Horse Association, and he had a business called Aussie Yarns, and he used to spin mohair and make his own spinning wheels. And
Yeah.
like his farm used to have big tour groups come through, and we had magazines come up and do some spreads, and he was on the news and what have you. So I bet there's a family famous photo of Dad with Prince Charles coming to check out the whole thing. And back at
and it really is a small world though too, isn't it? Like it's constantly something you're reminded of in the arts industry, because you just run into the same people all the time, it seems, and or you're only ever 1 degree of separation away from someone else that you know, so it's
totally, and that really ties into just to how, I don't know, I think respectful you need to be, and conscientious and what have you, especially with a culture in Australia that amongst artists like us, where we're doing a lot of shit for free and we're chipping in to help here and help there and blah, 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 blah. So now that film's doing the festival circuit.
That's right,
what's left of it.
What's left of it, I think Derek's... because Derek's managing all that with Bronwyn, and I think they're being fairly selective about what they apply for. But considering that a lot of stuff is just flat out shut down, or is moving to an online platform. Transferring, that's it.
Yeah.
To an online platform, that there's a lot of stuff sort of that's not available.
Yeah.
So we're really happy with the success of it so far, and it's obviously striking a chord with some programmers. So they're choosing it to appear on their on their festivals. So that's a good thing. It's a very good thing.
And so, what's your move now? We had a discussion last week about talent up in Queensland, and about agencies and the future coming. And what are you feeling? What are you seeing on the horizon?
I'm feeling really good about being where we are, not just because of the potential for work up here has exponentially increased in the last 6 months, even in the last 6 weeks probably. There's some big stuff coming. There's a Netflix series coming up here. There's the Rocks thing. There's
you know what? Oh, sorry to cut you off. I'm not going to cut you off. I'll come back to it. But make sure I don't forget it. Keep going.
And I've been surprised at the amount of I'm just running into people in my circle now that have significant film and television experience in the States, that are back here in the Sunshine Coast, because their parents live here, or their parents have retired here or something, and they've gotten out of America because there's not enough work to justify living there, and they can't make enough money to sustain their living expenses. So they're coming back to Australia. Yeah, they've come back to Australia to essentially just have a bit of a break whilst it all dies down, and I've found that they're starting to get some significant auditions come through for some stuff that's is really good quality work. And like, I don't hear much about those roles or even those productions, because I'm not in the sphere where I would be accepted to audition for those leading roles and stuff like that. But there's certainly those little 20-worders or 5-worders, or those guesties coming through for stuff that is really interesting stuff.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. So like we have the benefit of not being in lockdown. So like,
it is a decent benefit.
Yeah, I just think, and like my heart goes out to everyone that's shut in a box at the moment because I've been on the phone to mates in Melbourne and yeah, they're all pretty chipper about it and stuff, but my God, they're like, man, it's got to end or we're going to go nuts. So,
But you know what? I don't think they will, and I don't mean this as an attack on your friends or whatever. Like, because so many people said if they extended the lockdown, we're gonna fucking jack up. No one's done shit, right? Like people don't. People are too afraid. You know, there's 100 people that roll up to that protest, and because the fear of getting COVID is like
yeah,
it's when you're looking for an excuse to stop you from doing something that is terrifying.
Mhm.
That's a good one.
Well, I think it's really good in that people realise how good they had it
I hope so.
to some extent.
I really do hope so.
And I hope it brings people to the realisation that the important things are your family,
Yeah.
you know, and
Contact.
your community. Contact, yeah.
Face
Social,
to face.
face-to-face social contact. And all the rest of it can take a flying fuck at a rolling donut. If you don't have that, what's the point?
What's the point?
You know,
Yeah.
what is the point? So, yeah, I don't want to harp on about that much because it's fucking everywhere and everyone can make their own opinion about it. But, yeah, I'm just...
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. I'm a big fan of face-to-face.
Mm.
Always have been. And a lot of people probably think that I'm confrontational. Like, I'm not actually. I will avoid full-on confrontation. But I do, if I've got something to say, I really want to say it. Just whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
I really, really, I remember years ago I worked, I was managing a boutique production house out in Dubai. And I was new to that. I was new to photography, like fashion photography at the time. And then the guy asked me to manage it. And I was like, okay, but I'm going to need you to teach me how to do it, And he wanted me to, every question I had to put in an email, and I'm fucking 10 meters away. I'm like, mate, I'm younger than you and I'm more old school than you. I need to talk to you. And he wouldn't have it. And I was like,
man, you do 11 years in the public service and learn about fucking, oh my God. Like you wonder why, I can see why it's gone the way of subcontracting to private services because it's just so hard when you have to be accountable for every public dollar, the amount of reporting that you have to do and record keeping that you have to do so that at the drop of a hat, if a minister says what happened on this particular case, in this particular renovation of this bathroom on this date, you got to be able to go to your file and just go, oh, this happened. And it's in my diary, backed up in my diary, and I sent an email to my manager to inform him of the situation sort of thing so that they can report back to Parliament and go, yeah, well, this is what happened. But that process takes such a long time. You spend most of your time, like, not actually doing your job, just reporting on what you've done for your job. So it's difficult. It's difficult.
But you know what? They said the same thing after the GFC. I've got a new appreciation for where the road greed took me down, and now we're more leveraged and more in debt than ever before. No lessons learned.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Like,
but it's back to that. It's back to the, like, to some degree, it's back to the storyline of True Blue. Like we feel this pressure to have to be, to conform to what society dictates we need to be. So we need to have a house and we need to have a car or two and we need to send our kids to, a school of some sort. And we need to, the only way we can do that is by going to get a job where we work 9 to 5 and then, we bring work home and we subcontract the raising of our kids to the education department who essentially are going to, I'm going to get on a rant here, essentially are going to, they're going to make good little workers for the next generation to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I think coming back here to the Sunshine Coast, which is a pretty holistic place, has been a really good reminder for us. Like where our kids are in an independent school at the moment, they do Montessori, but
I was just about to say Montessori. Yep.
But even that, we're pulling them out. Like today's Thursday, tomorrow's their last day of term 3, and then term 4. We're trying unschooling, so they're going to be with us far more, and they don't have any structure. There's like, well, no, that's wrong.
I know what you're saying. Yep.
But yeah, it's completely child led, and we facilitate it, but we don't interfere with it. So, all the studies that we have researched to go down this path have said that kids do the majority of their learning. This has been backed up by their teachers as well. They do the majority of their learning from the social environment that they're in. So if you get kids of multiple ages together, they figure out stuff together through play. So, if you've got big kids and little kids trying to play a game of, cricket or something, if the little kids can't stay engaged, then they piss off and the big kids don't have a game. So the big kids have to invent, and the little kids have to invent rules that mean that the little kids will stay engaged in the game, but the big kids still get to. So there's all this negotiation and empathy and understanding and changing things to suit a changing environment, but to keep social at the same time. So we're really going to try and explore that. We live on a bit of a bush block here. We've got chalks and swings and fire pits and trampolines, and there's lots of kids in the street.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah, so we're really, and that's really kind of opened our eyes. That's what this whole, I think that was the when the lockdown happened up here in Queensland and we all went to schooling at home. We realised, it's not that, not that it's not that difficult, but speaking to their teachers, it certainly gave us an appreciation of what their teachers do, because they've got 30 kids that they're doing. We're trying to do it with 2, and it's like driving us insane. But asking their teachers, they would provide us a lot of content, and we thought, we have to do all this stuff every day. And the teacher's like, no. If you can get them to read for 10 or 15 minutes a day, you can get them to do some sort of creative writing, so like journaling in the morning or in the afternoon, or just see something and write about it, 5-10 minutes. A little bit of basic arithmetic, like, I want to buy a chocolate bar and a milk for Smoko or something. What's that going to cost? They figure it out. They said, done. That's their learning done for the day. The rest of the time, just get them involved in what you're doing, like get them cleaning up the house, playing in the yard, feeding the chickens, tending the vegetable patch. They said that's all that they need at their age. That's all that they need. So we thought, let's have a crack at it. And there's a big homeschooling community up here as well on the Sunshine Coast. My kids are actually at Wildlings Forest School right now with their mum, which is basically they just run around in the bush.
That's so good.
Supervised but unstructured.
Yeah. I was
for 3 hours.
Very, very fortunate, and I like to think I knew how fortunate I was as a kid when I went into town to go to school with other kids who didn't have what I had, and that was 136 acres with an orange grove and a fucking river and like cliffs and fucking forest to get lost in, and a dad who didn't give a shit. In the best kind of way. He'd just go, "See ya," and we would be gone. And
especially with 5 other siblings to play with, like it becomes, it's a bonding experience, And those, I don't know, are you still tight with your brothers and sisters, or? Some.
Sort of. It slips a bit, or has slipped a lot, because like we're all very different. It's crazy, or we're like miles apart. And my brother lives in London. I live here. My other sister lives in Perth, and my other sister lives in Esperance. And if you were to travel from Perth to Melbourne, you would beat the person traveling to Esperance in a car.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's an 8-hour drive. It's crazy. So, and it's an expensive flight. So I'm probably closest to my youngest sister because she's the most together, but my oldest 2 have got some shit. And as I get, like, I'm really, really, I'm a pro health, and I'm pretty staunch about it, right? Like I don't have a lot of room in my day for whining and insecurity and fucking like woe is me and negativity and, you know, tall poppy shit and
Yep.
fucking all of that.
Yep. Yep.
I'm not into it. You know, I
Yep.
don't give a shit if we're blood or not.
Yep.
You know, toxicity can get fucked. It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah, that
And
the victim mentality.
yeah, or just whatever. Just, you know, like, anyway, I'm not going to go on a rant about slamming my siblings.
No, God, no, I wouldn't do
No,
that.
but we are different. We're very
Yeah.
different. And we were a lot tighter as kids, but I was most tight with my stepbrother at the time.
Yeah.
And we were just Ninja Turtle and fucking Batman and Arnie fanatics.
Yeah.
But I do, just talking to you now, thinking about like how parents are losing their minds in lockdown with kids and what have you. And albeit we had, we didn't always live on the farm, so the next place we lived to had a little bit of land. But I guess it's because my dad was because my parents split when I was 4. So when he was looking after us all in one go, was either on his own. He had another wife at one point, but she was off working. He was at home with us. I mean, he was intimidating, right? So you would never back chat. You would never do the things that you weren't supposed to do.
Yeah.
So, and he didn't fucking, you know, beat us up every day, but you knew that if you stepped out of line, you were going to get a belt or a thong or a fucking backhand.
Yep.
But still, 6 kids sort of from 12 to 4 or whatever is like, that's a lot.
That is a lot. That is a lot.
You know?
Yeah.
And I wonder if he was ever, I doubt that he was ever in the office ripping his hair out or having a cry about it. He'd just come out and start breaking shit.
Yeah, that's right. Well, my dad too had a like I think he was. I'm very much like my father in a lot of respects. I think in that I had a very, like, I would snap from calm to just white hot rage. In
Really?
a split second. Now I've got massive anger issues. Still,
Do
I'm working
you?
through them. Yeah, massively, and it was brought on especially by having kids. Like, and then I've done not a lot. I've done some professional work and a lot of my own work as well, to just figure out what that's about. And
Have you figured it out?
well, yeah, basically it comes down to a sense of unworthiness, you know, and my kids basically, because I have to repeat myself a lot of times for stuff to get done, and my kids are 7 and 5. Like, who doesn't? You know, and I said that to their sensei at jiu-jitsu. I said, I just have to say stuff a million times. He says, mate, it doesn't change. Just lock yourself into that idea for 20 years and accept it. You're just going to have to repeat yourself. But I would just go off and yell and scream, and it does nothing. They just shut down and get really scared. And, you know, it came to a head, and Jeannie said to me, you have got to do something about this anger. It is just... She's like her. It's just I'm just not available for it. I'm just not available for it. It's damaging. It's damaging.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the impetus, and I went and saw a guidance psychologist, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, and we did a bit of deep diving, and it comes down to when I was a kid. This is as far as we've gone. Is when I was a kid. My older brother, who's 2 years older than me, very successful tennis player, junior tennis player. And my maternal grandfather, he had a lot of trophies, my brother. And they were like all over the, you know, everywhere. And my maternal grandfather built these trophy cabinets to sit above our beds in our shared bedroom. And my brother's trophy cabinet was just chockers full of these trophies. And I had these, you know, like certificate of achievement and, you know, those sort of things. And so from the time I was probably, I don't know, 7 until the time, I don't know when those trophy cabinets came down, but it was well into my teenage years. So at least I would say probably close to 10, maybe 8 years, every time I walked into my bedroom, because my brother then went to boarding school. So from the time he was at grade 8 to 12, he was at boarding school in Toowoomba, and I continued schooling in Cairns. Every time I walked into my room, I'd have this visual reminder of not how successful he was. I translated that to how unsuccessful I was. And and that subconsciously we've working through has just manifested in this sense of unworthiness, and the things that I do subconsciously and sometimes consciously just to fuck my own shit up, because I don't think I'm worthy of it. And I've done
when you're red
fucking
hot.
disgusting stuff to my family, and it just over the years, even when I'm red hot, even when I'm not
Sabotaging.
red hot, just stuff that I've done is sickening, just disgusting stuff. And Jeannie, bless her heart, is willing to face that stuff head on, and we're working through it now. And when you called me about this podcast, I was deep into that stuff, that's why I was like going, I don't know if I'm the guy, I don't know if people want to hear my shit, I don't know if I'm worthy of going on a podcast to talk about my acting career or my life, because it ain't that fucking rosy. I've found out the whole thing is, it's been deeply affected by stuff that and I'm sure it goes beyond the trophy cabinet. I'm sure there's other stuff. And I don't want to say that my childhood was bad in any way, shape or form, because it was really good, like yours. We would come home when the streetlights come on. We had a fantastic life. I was always provided with everything that I needed, and sometimes lots of stuff I didn't need. I just wanted it, Mum and Dad still married today, in a loving relationship. I had very good role models. I was, had access to everything that a child could want. And the guilt of still being a perceived, fuck up in my own mind, this is not what the outside world sees, but this is the stuff I battle with, of not being worthy, of still doing shit that is just not right on any level, manifests itself as, again, as like, how can you be where you are with 2 kids and a loving wife and a family, and this perceived, like, you got a roof over your head, you got 2 nice cars in the garage. How the fuck did you end up there, mate? Because you don't deserve that shit.
Mate. Have a look
you just
around.
don't deserve that shit. Yeah. And that, I think, has been, I know it's been really, really hard to lean into. And it's still hard now, but I'm getting much better at it. And I'm getting better at, I think the big thing for, and particularly, I don't know particularly for men, I don't know how it is for women, but I know guys, a lot more guys than I do girls, but I think it's still really hard for guys to release that, the attachment to the need to be strong, to provide, to do all these things that are set, like we were talking about, that are set by social...
Yes, your cultural...
expectations. Cultural and social expectations. And I think that I honestly feel like it's changing. And I feel like the people that are coming into my sphere are people that are open to that change, or are going through it themselves, or are on the cusp of going through it, or have gone through it. But that I can say, like, I meditate, I wear crystals, I fucking swim in the ocean, I do the whole thing. I sage the fucking house, all that shit. And for me, it just works for me. And I don't say it has to work for you or anyone that's listening to this podcast or anyone out there at all. But it's just find the thing that makes you less...
Yeah, you need the direct opposite
and
of that thing that you don't want to do, right? So you're creating a counter move to any of the moves that you don't want to take, So, and that will ultimately, it may not, it's not the sage, and it's not the crystals, and it's not that. It's the choice. It's the conscious choice that you're making to stop yourself from diving off the deep end. That will firm up a new neural pathway, which will become a new pattern and a new habit, and will decrease and ultimately get rid of that dead
Yep.
end old road.
Yeah, that's right. And I know you're into this stuff, this neuroplasticity stuff, and I've spoken to you about Dr. Joe Dispenza because that was my way in, and it's just gone further from there as well.
When did we talk about him?
I think in our first conversation we spoke about Dr. Joe and how, like the concept of neuroplasticity and the way that your brain affects body chemistry, but that you have the conscious ability to change the way
You have,
your brain operates.
yeah,
And that I've found is a really strong access point for a lot of men because it's science based. It's fact. You know, it's not
100%.
it's not woo, it's not spiritual, it's not zen, it's not inner peace, it's not chakras, it's not all that stuff.
No, it's proven.
It's proven.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
having done Dr. Joe's week-long advanced retreat, he's all...
You did it, did you?
Yeah. And he's all about the spiritual stuff.
Yeah, totally.
It
Because
just-
it's
it can't-
that other
yeah.
thing that we there's still the other thing
Yeah.
that we don't. It's not tangible. It's not there.
No, that's right.
And it counts for a lot of things. But I said to my dad last year, he was here, and we went down south, and we were having a couple of drinks, and we were a bit drunk, and then my wife and him got into. My wife's an avid vegan, and my dad's an old livestock farmer, and I couldn't believe they were getting into this conversation. And of course, my dad's drunk at this point, and I can't even remember exactly what Erica said to him, but he fucking flipped. And he's only met Erica like 3 times, and starts fucking shouting. And so I, jump in and call a pin, and everyone goes to bed and whatever. And I said to him, maybe 2 days later, we went out, and I said, this rage thing of yours, can you tell me any time in your life where the outcome of that rage has been good? Never.
Never.
It's never got you what you want.
No.
Just got people to fucking hate you or not like you or fall out of love with you or divorce you or not talk to you or fucking whatever. It does not work. And he, like, I saw it land, but my dad has an incredible ability of forgetting those moments in order to confirm. He is the biggest victim of confirmation bias I've ever seen. Like, the biggest blow up that we ever had, he and I, was only 5 years ago, and he has forgotten it. Like, we're talking major. We're talking screaming, shouting, tears, me running out the door, him calling me all night, apologizing. Cannot remember it. He will eradicate anything that should lead him down a path of change.
Yeah. Well, the thing is too, and this is what we've discovered, like, I think men are discovering, you don't ever eradicate it. You just squash that shit.
Yeah.
And it comes up. Like, the rage that he bursts into, I found that, well, I can't speak for your dad because everyone's different, but my anger that I would direct at my children had nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
Nothing whatsoever to do with them. It was all my own shit.
Yeah, of course.
And because I was on this neural pathway that went, I don't want to deal with the real source of that, I'm going to anger.
Yeah.
And I'd done that for 47 years. So that's a really well-trodden path.
That's a highway.
Yeah, that is a highway, and it is getting run every day. So to stop that highway before it's triggered is the key. Like, the awareness
that's right.
of the trigger to stop when you go, oh, I'm just about to lose my shit. Because for me, it's like that.
Yeah,
You know,
and that's why you need to create, lifeboats or life rings or whatever that act on your behalf when you're going in, and that needs to be done consciously, and it's cognitive reprogramming, and that's what you do need a specialist a lot for that. It's very hard to do on your own, and you almost really need to have long periods of clarity to consciously iron out those things. Even myself, all of my change came about. I was always the opposite. Like when I was a kid, I was a sulker, so I never, which would send my dad into fucking rage. Um, but I was never aggressive or angry or ragey, and I still probably sulked in some form of another with passive aggressiveness and what have you into my late 20s. I would say different level. You'd never it would come out differently, but I've never really put a word on it till now, and well, I used to get really broken by breakups. That was probably the thing that really got me the most was, a lack of trust in a relationship or a lack of worthiness or distance and missing someone. I'd be crippled by it. Like I'd lose just kilos and kilos of weight and sleepless nights and all this kind of stuff. And long story short, I eventually reached out to a friend who's a life coach, nutritionist, personal trainer, and said, "Enough's enough. What the fuck can I do?" And she took me. We went over to an island, and we were running up and down the beach, and we had created these alternate like realities and picked the one that I wanted, and in within like an hour of running up and down the beach and talking about what I didn't want, talking about what I wanted, talking about what I didn't want, what I wanted, my whole wiring. If you had a MRI or whatever it is on my scan, you would have seen it happen because I've never been the same since, and I felt it change like that. And she was like, "That's that's it," and I've never ever gone down that path again, and I haven't had to fight it.
Yeah.
I've been in those situations again and gone, okay.
Yeah, well, you are truly blessed, man, and I wish that I could say the same for me. But mine is a constant reminder to stay aware.
Yeah, I mean, I'm. It isn't like. Yeah, it's still a daily thing where I'm still talking to myself about, well, what's the next neural pathway, and what's the next one, and what's the next one. And when I got close to a similar situation, I felt a cellular retention of what my body would be accustomed to doing in that situation, but my mind was the new mind, right? So it was really funny. It was like, I feel sick like I would normally feel sick in this situation, but I can sleep and eat. Whereas before I wouldn't be able to sleep and eat, and I could control the amount of texting or checking my phone or whatever. So I was like 50% there. I was stuck right in the middle.
It's funny too that you say that. Sorry, I'm going to jump in. It's funny that you say you were focusing on what you didn't want and then focusing on what you did want, and just the act of paying more attention to what you do want and less attention to what you don't want gives you more of what you want, because you subconsciously now you're looking for the things to affirm what you're fixating on, which is what you want, and they'll come to you more because it's like you're like, I want to buy
where your energy goes.
Yeah. I want to buy a BMW X5 or something. So you just see BMW X5s everywhere you go, and it's the same thing, and it highlights the fact that we spend a lot of time, or I do. Again, I don't want to. I'm not speaking for everyone, but I found that I spent a lot of time focusing on what I didn't want to happen. I have to avoid that at all costs, and yeah, I might avoid that specific thing, but subconsciously I do something else to fuck it up, because I'm focused on what I don't want, and then. Even just recently, I feel like I've gone through another level where I released the attachment to having to find, to being an actor, if that makes sense. I'm sorry, the garbage man's here, so this might come through on a noise, but
that's right.
I released the attachment to having to be a successful, in someone else's eyes, actor. Like I had to find work all the time. I had to be working all the time or working on something all the time. If I didn't have something going on, I had to be working on a scene or reading plays and stuff like that. And I just went, you know what? It's all just too fucking much. I just want to renovate the house and plant a vegetable patch and play with my kids, And so I consciously stayed away from that stuff. And guess what? It's rolling in the door, It's rolling in the door. And I'm not even looking for it. It's just coming to me. And
because
yeah, it's a hard thing to. It's a feeling. It's like a feeling. So you can't ever explain it because you won't know it. And I can tell you what I think it feels like, but it's going to be different for everyone because it's kind of like a knowing. You know, it settles into your body, and it's you know.
yeah. Well, that's i- that's the flip of the pathway. Um, yeah, and like I am very very grateful that that I took it up really quickly. Because I literally um I hadn't thought. It's interesting. Two of my very very dear friends are both clinical psychologists, and they run a practice in the States. So since I was 18, I've been exposed to pro mental health therapy, and I've always been in defiance of it. And I hadn't even thought about it. And then I went through this bizarre, horrific, weird breakup. Found myself in the ER after doing meth all night to try and convince this girl that I was cool. And I was just telling my neighbor about this yesterday. I said it's one of those pinnacle fucking moments where this quintessential Aussie nurse in her 50s was going, "So, what have you done to yourself?" Well, I told her the story. She goes, "Could you live without this girl?" And I went, "Yeah." She goes, "I think you should."
Just like that.
And it was just like that.
Yeah.
I fucking called her and I said, "Yeah, look, game over." Um, and then my mate who doesn't live in Australia, who was the life coach, just was in Australia at the time. And I said, "This is the deal. I know you're a life coach. What can we do?" And within a week, it was done. And then I was in, then I went from her to a clinical psychologist and I did a bunch of EMDR. If you haven't done EMDR, you should be talking to your psychologist about that.
Electromagnetic.
No, eye
No.
movement desensitization reprocessing,
Okay. Cool.
deep trauma therapy,
Yeah.
and you can get massive results in like 4 sessions. It's absolute game changer. And it's becoming more and more common in Australia, but it's been like been the go in the States for the last 20 years. Um, and so I did a bunch of sessions with her, and it was like, okay, so your dad's dysfunction with all of his 4 marriages has set a pathway for you that you don't believe relationships can work. So everyone that you choose is destined to fail. And whether it be them that fuck it up or you, one of you is going to do it. And so when that was knocked out of the park, never stepped a single toe back into any kind of um, um, contemplation or trying to convince myself that whoever I was dating at that time, if they didn't tick those mandatory boxes, just fucking, I was out of there straight away. Whereas before it'd be like, "Oh, but and one of the sessions that I did with Marissa was to write down who my ideal partner was and a perfect place that we would be. And to the fucking word, Erica is what I wrote down 5 years before I met her. Like, I wrote down 5'10", 5'11", blonde, green eyes, atheist, vegan, loves animals. We're swimming together underwater. She supports me in my career. This is that and that. And there I was swimming underwater in Esperance, holding her hand. We're 6 weeks into the relationship, and I'm like, underwater. I was like, this is the fucking thing.
Yeah.
This is what I put in my.
Yeah.
It was wild.
It is.
Wild.
And when you release that attachment to a time frame on stuff as well, I think that's the important thing as well. Like, we're all used to
That's a tough one.
instant gratification now.
Yeah.
And like, I shied away from the hard work, the personal hard work and the diving and because it fucking hurts. You don't want to go there. You don't want to face that shit. It makes me feel horrible that I have to acknowledge all the shit things that I've done and the people it's affected. So your natural response is to no, don't go there. But what you actually have to do is go there and just dive into that stuff and not expect to come out the other end of it after an hour's session or whatever and go, well, that's it, I'm all good now. It's fucking, my life's amazing, you know?
Yeah.
No, it took you, like, one of my acting teachers in Melbourne's, I cried doing a scene or something, and he said, oh, that's good that you can cry, that's great, but he said, you know, at the time, he said, you're a 43-year-old Australian male. You've spent 43 years building walls. You're not gonna knock them all down in a night of acting classes. He said, you got to keep that work going. You know, it's nice that you can tap into it here, but can you tap into it at home? Can you let it affect you? Can you let your kids? Can you let your friends affect you in that way and just lose your shit and turn into a ball of snot? I bet you can't, because you put all these social constraints and build all these walls to protect you emotionally that you need to start now breaking down in order to be a better instrument for the work.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's interesting. Yeah, it's amazing that I grew up in exactly that same environment, but that part of it never latched itself onto me. And so I'm in my mid-20s being that guy who would cry in the movie or cry at the fucking party talking to his mates and losing a lot of my masculine friends because of it, you know? And then years later, they've come back and whatever, it's a bit different. They've got kids or a puppy dog now, and they get it. So I've been lucky in that department, but that probably lent itself to me being a bit more sulky and why don't you call me type shit. To my male friends.
Yeah. But it's important too, you know, like it's important for the guys to have that social contact as well, you know, and those relationships. And, you know, a lot of the shit that I did was because I didn't feel like I had friends close enough to talk to about it, male friends close enough to talk to about it.
Right.
To say, hey, buddy, it's okay. You know, it's okay that you feel that way. Don't fucking do what you're about to do because that is not the answer.
That's not the answer.
You know,
nothing good will ever come of it.
Nothing good will ever come of that. And it's funny you say that conversation with your dad about when has rage ever resulted in a positive outcome for you. And that was the thing that my kids said to me the other day. They said, you don't get angry anymore. And I said, no, I don't get angry anymore because every time I get angry, all it does is hurt me.
What a great thing for them to see.
Well, I hope so.
Fuck yeah, dude. If they can see that, that's wild. Yeah. I very similar but different conversation with a friend of mine who used to think that her alcohol dependency and drunken this and drunken that was not just a hippie cool thing, and that her two girls are probably going to have substance abuse and male fucking this and that because it's all they've ever seen. No matter how hippie and friendly and funny you are, that is going to come out later. And I really think you should put a fucking stop to it now before they hit teenage years, you know? I reckon we'll probably wrap it up.
Yeah, mate, absolutely. Yep. I'm not sorry. But it just it really got I really started getting into the fired up there towards the end when we started talking.
No, this is good, you know. And I'm not trying to say, listen, man, I don't want to hear what you have to say.
No, God, no.
Actually, be here for another fucking hour, but I'm a dad these days.
Yeah,
so I've got to go and do the thing.
Start programming some minds, mate, in a positive way.
I know exactly right. Like, I tell you, that's one of the things among a lot of things, but I am very grateful that all of that stuff I had sort of 6 or 7 years of practicing it before Layla came along. And one of the things that you said, and I'll close that out on this, do you know Mick Preston?
No.
He's one of the teachers at TAFTA.
Okay.
He was on one of my earliest episodes, and great guy. And he's got 2 kids, and whenever you meet him, he's thrashed out by him. And I said, what if Erica was sort of 6 months pregnant at that point, maybe 7 months. And I said, what's your advice? And he said, whatever shit you've got, they'll find it and they'll use it.
Yeah.
They won't know that they're using it, but that's and I felt in that moment, I was like, thank fuck that my shit is, it's not done, but it's pretty fucking close.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that I had done a lot of reading and a lot of prep internally and on an exterior, working with my friends who are children's psychologists and all of that to build this little tool bag ready to go. So, you know, like to never allow fatigue and your 5-month who's going through vocal range exercises, who's screaming for 12 hours a day to get to you. I mean, what a thing, you know, to pop your lid because your infant child is just doing what they do, you know, and then your toddler is doing what a toddler does.
And big kudos to you, mate, for just like, for doing the work to prepare. Like, I did no work to prepare for fatherhood. Right. So I was learning more about myself through my kids and with less tools to deal with it. And then just, you know, teaching them all my bad habits. I'm changing that now. But, you know, massive respect. And anyone who's out there who's coming close to fatherhood, I urge you to go down Josh's path. And
I think it's that would be the advice that I give too. Hey, like it just there's so much content out there. There's no, this sounds judgy, but there's no excuse for not. And my parents, both of my parents, used to always say there was no books for us. Bullshit, there wasn't. There was plenty. One of the most prominent books about breath work for pregnant mothers and what have you was written in the 40s, you motherfuckers.
Yeah, it's nuts, isn't it?
It's all there.
Yeah.
It's all there.
It's all
Just
there.
get your hands on it because like your life depends on it. You know, it kind of does. Listen, man, I really appreciate you taking the time out. It's great to actually have a proper conversation with you because I've never had one.
Yeah. I'd like to do this again. Not necessarily with a camera, but I'd love to chat with you more about everything. Because you're a very unique man. I mean,
likewise, thanks, buddy.
We're all unique, but I think you've got a lot to teach, which is good.
You should check out someone called Motherfuck.
George
Braden.
Oh, George Braden. No, Greg Braden.
Greg Braden. Oh, you're onto it.
I'm onto Greg Braden.
Yeah. He talks about a soul compass.
Yes. And he's got a lot of that American Indian wisdom in him too, which I really gel with. I think it's very cool.
He's a slick cat.
Yeah. Him and Joe are pretty tight.
Yes. Yeah, and Bruce Lipton.
Epigenetics. Get on it, people. It's good stuff, man. It's good stuff. Yeah.
We'll continue in a second. Thanks, buddy.
No worries, mate.
Bye.
See ya.